welcome back to A Conversation With. My name is Philip DeFranco, and today we're talking to Sean Jack. I'm just kidding. Jacksepticeye, aka Sean, buddy, pal. Is this the first time that we're talking like this?
Yeah. We met at like a VidCon thing years ago, at like a maker party, I think. But it was like, hey, how's it going? Okay, bye.
Yes, just very quick niceties, and you're bouncing back and forth. And then I almost feel a little bit bad. I skipped the 10th VidCon. It would have been my 10th in a row because I've been going since the original because I'm an old man. And I thought, yeah, I'll skip one, maybe come back the next year. And then here we are. I'm kind of regretting it a little bit.
No, well, I've only been to 2 in America, and then I went to 1 in England, the one just this year, and then got violently ill from it and was like, okay, maybe conventions right now are not a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like as of the last 3 years, every time I would go to a thing, it's just everyone's like, yeah, you got con flu, and it's just like, oh yeah, because I went from living my normal life to hugging and shaking hands with 300 people while being like incredibly close to one another so we could try to half the time buy something that I'm gonna put on a wall and forget about. And that's the same thing.
Yeah, and now the thought of touching other people is like, no, stay away from me, please.
Jack, for the uncultured out there, I'm gonna ask you the question that usually every creator hates. Who are you and what do you do for the uninitiated, the uncultured?
I'm the annoying side of YouTube. I don't know. I play games. I started off my channel playing games. It's kind of a mixed match of everything these days. Just trying to have fun, record videos. I don't know. How do you describe yourself?
I'm a fucking tired old internet man. I don't know. But with you specifically, I mean, I whenever I watch your stuff, because once again we haven't talked before. I always wonder. I'm like, is he a guy that hates talking about himself? Because you're also now. I mean, you probably were before, but you're also an entrepreneur. You launched a coffee company on your recent break. One that I'm going to create my own just to spite you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, we're gonna compete with our dirty beans, and but then I feel like you probably have a lot more going on than just your videos, which is already, I mean, some people that are kind of not familiar with the space, it's already a ton of work. Like, to make gaming content interesting, like people think it's very easy, but it's actually very, very hard. It's a different skill set. It's very close to when you're when I make a video, I get to do multiple takes, and obviously when you're playing a game, you get to. But it feels like, to me, it's like a weird hybrid between a VOD model and live streaming, which is live streaming itself is such a hard entertain. It's why so many YouTubers are bad at it, because it's like you're used to hiding behind editing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bad at it every now and then. Like I'll do a stream, and after 2 hours, I'm done. My energy levels are just gone. I get hungry. My attention span just kind of drifts. I'm like, how do people do this for like 7 hours a day? Because the most I've ever recorded, I think, in one go is like 3.5 hours or something. But then a stream I've done 10, but I was like wiped. And then you have people who do it every day for like 6-7 hours. I'm like, man, because people think you drift into it easily. Like if I do the Let's Play thing, I can do the streaming thing. And I guess some of that is a little true because not much changes, but just that level of like entertaining the chat while you're recording, and my focus is so divided all the time. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. So actually kind of on that, with this, I'm going to get the name wrong. The new flight sim that's out that everyone's like in love with, is that a game that it's very easy to make content with, or actually very hard because there's not a lot happening outside of like when you mess up or like when you crashed into your old home?
Yeah, I had that plan to do that video. I mean, everybody who plays that game, because you have the whole world in the game. So everyone's like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to see my house. And I can't go to my actual house because then I'll just dox myself. So I luckily had another place in Ireland that I used to live in that I could go to. So it's like, okay, I had that in my head for a long time and knew kind of what I was going to do in it. But I think, it's kind of a hard game to make content out of. I just uploaded one where I went to Area 51 and I was struggling to get anything out of it because it's like you go there and then what? You're not actually going to find anything.
Then you have to just create your own story.
Yeah, so I got shot down by the FBI, apparently. Very clever.
So for those, what's the process for a video like that? Because are you at a place where you're still making yourself try to do the rough edit, the full edit? Do you just do you just take a chunk of raw footage, and do you have like a in-house or a third party editor that you ship stuff off to? How does that work? Because you have a crazy output, and it's not just the crazy output because you've been doing it for so long. You still have a crazy output. So how does that work?
Right. I do have an editor who's helped me. I think we've been together for like 4 years now. And he's been helping me a lot. His name's Robin. He goes by Pixel Pit online, and he's amazing. He used to do 3D animation, and that's how I found him. And he did some animation stuff for my channel, and then he's just been helping me out every single day since then, because that was the thing, that amount of output all the time, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was doing 2 videos every day, I think for 5 years, and I never missed a time slot, and I always prided myself on that, but it just wears you down after a while. You can't do that consistently and constantly, and then the edits get a little stale because I'm trying to upload it in time, so you need a fresh set of eyes on it to try and reinvigorate the content a little bit. But yeah, these days I just sit down and hit record and go. The only kind of planning I do is to try and figure out what type of game I want to play or what type of video I want to do. And for something like the flight sim, I will sit down and kind of draft out like, okay, I want to do this, and this is kind of the narrative that I want to get out of the video. But other than that, it's all just sort of improv, and then a lot of it is saved in editing afterwards. There's a lot that gets cut out where I'm like, I'm a fucking moron. What am I saying? I have no idea what's going on. And then I'm like, please help me. And then just a lot of it ends up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. This question is why do you still make videos? I was going to say this question is, if you thought I was like an aggressive interviewer, it might seem like accusatory and like, why are you still doing it? But why do you, what gets you up in the morning? Because you've been doing it for a while. You have a lot of success. Why do you continue to put out content?
Money. No.
The most honest man on YouTube. No.
I mean, I asked myself that when I went on break. I was like, do
Mhm.
I even really want to still do this? And I legitimately thought about retiring because I felt like a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do was already done, or I was kind of getting down on my own process and my own content. I kind of got sick of hearing my own like voice in my videos. I got sick of the types of videos I was uploading. But that was just being completely burnt out and not knowing where to go and kind of getting a bit aimless. But I think I just really enjoy making something. It's nice to have a creative outlet. I feel like everybody kind of needs one, whether it be crafting something with your hands or just making music or noodling around a guitar or whatever. I just like the idea of crafting a project. And it was a really nice thing to have something every day that by the end of the day, good, bad, or indifferent, it was something that I had put my stamp on. It was like closure to the end of every day. And I think it's just nice to have something that you're putting out into the world that people react to, and some sort of like, I don't know, maybe it's an artistic thing where it's nice to see feedback and opinions and hear what people are thinking, and just kind of putting something out into the world that you hope like raises a few smiles and makes people's days a little brighter. And it makes me feel productive when I'm making stuff, and just makes me feel fulfilled. Because for a long time I had no idea what I was going to do in my life, and I thought I would do the regular kind of job, the 9 to 5 job in an office, and that never enticed me. But as soon as I got into this, it was like that pilot light got turned on for the first time. I was like, oh, this is what I really react to. This is what I'm better at than, say, another type of job. So I always kind of got fulfillment out of doing it every day.
So
And then
wait, what?
realizing that,
Oh, sorry. I good old Zoom delay or Skype delay. What took you from that mindset of, I'm going to do the 9 to 5 thing, even though it's not enticing, to I'm going to try this video thing? Because when did you get started? Like what year, and what were you doing with your life at that time?
um, I think it was 2012 was the first video I uploaded. It was a Solid Snake impression from Metal Gear Solid, which is still up in the channel. You can go watch it if you want. But I was sitting down, I was playing like a lot of Battlefield and stuff, and I would try and figure out how to get better at the game. So I would go to YouTube to look at videos, and there was other YouTubers doing videos on Battlefield, especially a YouTuber called Level Cap Gaming, who's still making content today. And I just watched his stuff. I thought it was great. It was cool. And then one day he sat down, he did a vlog, and he talked about doing it as his job. I was like, holy crap, you can actually do that. You can play games as your job. And I never expected it to become a job. I didn't go in wanting it to be a job or like that was my focus. I just did it because I thought like, that's cool. He's doing something he really cares about. And you can actually do stuff around gaming, which was kind of what a lot of my life was at the time. And I wanted to just get into it and try it out for myself. And then I fell in love with editing and fell in love with like comedy and comedic timing and trying to like get better and better and better. And it got me over a lot of my own OCDs with myself, my own idiosyncrasies about how I sounded and my voice. It helped me not cringe at myself. You know, that thing you do in like the 90s or the 80s or whatever, you tape yourself and it's like, God, I don't sound like that, do I? I'm like, yeah, you do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you get out of that mindset a little bit, and it gave me a bit more confidence the more I did it.
Was there a point in your early or maybe later career that, because it sounds very much like the beginning was very much for you, right? You were looking for this personal fulfillment, this creation, this learning and potentially thriving in a place. But when you talk about why you make stuff now, it seems very much based off of the audience reaction, right? The possible betterment of a person, that their day or maybe like a nugget of something that makes their life better. Was there any specific thing, or was it a string of things that you started seeing, or am I off base? Is it was there not a shift like that?
No, there definitely was, because another reason why I started was because I had no real friends at the time. True story, I lived in a log cabin in the woods when I was like 18 to 20-ish.
Wow.
And I went to college and everything, and nobody really played games as much as I did, and I always thought I was weird for that, and I didn't really fit in, and I couldn't really, because I could go on in length about talking about video games and how stories are crafted and all that stuff, but nobody else really connected with that. So I sort of threw my voice into the void to see if anyone would like come back, because I found that community in Level Cap's audience. I was like, I kind of want to do that myself, and want to try and see if I can get other like-minded people to come in and see if they like the same sort of games that I do. And then it kind of blossomed from there. And I think when I hit around 50K, well, I got the Pewdiepie Shoutout, of course, when I was at like 2,500. And that was like a huge boost to be like, okay, I'm on the right track. Clearly I'm doing something right if it's resonating with people like that. And then more people came in from that. And the more I did it, I hit 50K. I met my first set of fans when I was out shopping and in real life. And that kind of like ignited the fire more. And just seeing people's reactions and seeing that a lot of them were in the same place that I was, kind of miserable and depressed and didn't really know what they were doing with their lives. And everyone online, whether they say something good or awful, are just trying to validate their own voice. Or at least I feel like they're just trying to like put their voice out there and feel like I want somebody to react to me. I want somebody to let me know that I exist and I'm here. And I want I feel like a lot of people who are angry on the internet just want people to know they're there, because that's some reaction that they're getting. So I always try to think about that and think about other people in their home life. This sounds very philosophical and narcissistic and pretentious, but that was kind of my mind at the time, that I wanted to just connect with other people who were miserable.
No, I come from that. I feel like that generation, it's not fully gone, that generation of YouTuber that was like, I'm lonely, I'm sad. I need some sense of community. For me, it wasn't that creator. It was DeFranco. It was more of like a news comedy based thing. And he had his show, and I felt like a part of community. And when he specifically ended his show to go on to do other things, there was like a massive hole in my life. So I definitely get that. I'm very, I don't know, if he never stopped doing his show, maybe I would have never made mine, right? Because I needed that sense of loneliness.
Yeah.
That taking a rainy day to pursue my own sunny day, you know?
Well, that's the thing, because in my miserable time when all I was doing was playing games, it kind of gets my brain going in all these other directions. And I feel like, I keep saying it now, especially when so many people are furloughed and they can't work, or so many people are at home, they can't go to school, or this pandemic has kind of like messed up people's lives a lot. There's a lot of potential to go into these things that a lot of people have been putting off for a long time. Like maybe I'll take up knitting, or I'll take up playing piano. And I think now is a great time to be able to do that. You're never going to have more time than you did in these 6 months to try and do new things. And streaming and YouTube is always a thing that anybody can do. And it's free to start, basically. And most people have a better camera on their phones nowadays than I did when I started. So
I was shooting 360 by 240.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, it was like I was like, okay, I got to find a window. I'm gonna make it black and white because for some reason there are fewer artifacts. And here we go.
Right.
I'm just gonna start
Yeah.
ranting about the news. Hopefully, there's a future in this. Or actually, it
But
wasn't even that at that time. It was more, yeah, it was just the sense of belonging, and I didn't have money to do other shit. Like it was like
yeah.
it was. I had an internet connection. I scrounged up enough money to get a webcam. Here we go.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like people. I like hearing how people tick and how they operate and where their lives are. And for me at the time, not having anybody kind of be interested in what I was doing, I just got interested in other people and wanted to connect. And I don't know, the world could be such a shitty place when it wants to be, but it can also be wonderful.
So, what takes you from a place of you want to connect, you're looking for this community, and then you're for that community, you're outputting at a crazy level. What makes you go, I need to take a break, and what's the goal during that break for you?
I think I started to develop unhealthy habits because when I started off making content and wanted to connect with other people, I think I got too heavily involved in that. I got too connected. I got into other people's lives. I shared everything on the internet, but I think I slowly started to realize that I prided myself on Sean and Jacksepticeye being the same person
Mm-hmm.
because being humble and genuine and honest and open and transparent was a really cool thing because a lot of YouTubers around that time weren't doing that. They were very narcissistic and kind of full of themselves
Mm-hmm.
and doing it for money. And I felt like YouTube was going into this weird arc. Then I saw some other YouTubers be open and genuine. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. It's nice to connect with people and talk to them and be more than just an entertainer. But I feel like doing that for so long, the boundaries kind of got a bit blurred. I didn't really know where my private life started and where my work life was. And people had so much information on me that it felt like I had nothing for myself anymore. And I absolutely love my audience and I love doing YouTube and connecting with people. But I feel like the older I got, the more I realized I needed boundaries and kind of need to fence some things off for myself. And maybe the internet doesn't need to know everything about me. And I can actually go away and do something for myself and not have other people kind of pry into that. And it's a weird thing to try and get your head around unless you're actually in that space. I feel like you don't really get what that level of like people giving you their opinions and their feedback all day, every day is like until you really are in it. And then it's like, okay, this isn't good for my brain. Even if people are saying really nice things about you all the time, it's not good for you because it'll
Yeah.
just build you up to this point where you're probably just going to fall even harder than after that. So I needed to get away and get away from my content, away from my channel. I wanted to see if I could be happy outside of Jacksepticeye, if I had a life and I had a like the mental capacity outside of my channel and my numbers and my audience. And luckily, I feel like I can find that happiness now.
So for you on your break, that it felt like you confirmed that you answered that question.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely validated that there is stuff outside of my channel that I can do, and I can feel like I don't need to feel relevant all the time.
Do you feel like there's a possibility that you might have felt that more because you knew that you could always come back?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on YouTubers to keep continuing that output for a long time because when you're on that wave, you want to keep riding it before you crash or potentially crash. I talk to so many people who are afraid that if they stop uploading, they're done, they're dead.
Sure.
Um, so you kind of need that sense of like, okay, if I do pull back, is my channel actually decent enough? Have I been outputting like this version of myself that is like, will people actually still watch me if I come back after a month being gone? And it's nice to know that there are a lot of people who still will care about my content after that.
Yeah, it is. It's always that weird thing. Like for the past few years, I would always take a break from, I think it would be like December 20th to January 10th or something like that. And
Mm,
this last year, I held off, I believe, until February 15th because I just
wow.
I needed some time. Uh, and yeah, I mean, you definitely get the hit, but it also comes from a place of knowing that there are ups and downs. Like I feel like
Mm,
that's kind of the one. That's this actually the weird saving grace for me over the especially at this part of the career. I've experienced incredible highs and devastating
yeah.
lows of like, oh, this is done. This is my career is done. Um,
Yeah.
which I felt, I want to say like 6 years ago. And because I have that, I'm like, oh, there's always the potential for a bounce back. Everything can go up and down. But then also, what do I actually care about? Like
Right.
what matters the most to me? And that's slowly changed. Like I used to want the largest audience possible. Now it's I want a specific audience that I I feel more appreciated and respected by, and I have
Mm.
those same feelings. Whereas I don't know, especially as you get the larger audience, there's a sometimes I'm trying to think how to say it without naming specific people. It's very easy to hear, like you're saying, the positive things from not so great people, and then you lean into not so great behaviors, right?
Yeah.
Like there's definitely a part of my audience that loves when I just destroy someone, right? And in the
Right.
past, it's like going at someone as if their entire world needed to be destroyed for
Yeah.
a singular act. That is
Yeah.
all they are. Now I will do that for like the Brock Turners of the world. Yes, a thousand percent. Yes, that makes sense. But for some other people, and also, I don't know, experiencing a lot of stuff over the last 14 years, especially even when it gets negative towards you, made me appreciate what motivating an audience towards possibly a negative thing can do to another human being.
Yeah.
So it's
It's very dangerous to be able to do that.
yeah, and I think a lot of people don't, especially if you're new to it, you don't
Yeah.
understand or respect that power. And I think that's why, especially, we'll always have massive fuck ups in the news because there's no human being that initially knows what to do with that sort
Yeah.
of power and fame. I was just before we started this podcast, I was watching. It's a slightly different avenue. I was watching Dave Chappelle from 2006 talking with Oprah about why he turned down $50 million, and
Right.
because I remember hearing that news years and years ago
Yeah.
and being like, how? What fucking world? And then once you experience like comfort and success, you're like, oh yeah, there's a way that everything can go crazy and you feel manipulated and taken advantage of, and everyone's looking for a way, like a hand in your pocket.
Yeah.
It's rough. I mean, have you ever had to deal with? Have you had a portion of your career, or are you in it now, where you felt taken advantage of by anybody?
I think like 3, 4 years ago, maybe there was a lot of like merch companies, a lot of
Oh yeah.
brand people who really want to just like get in and ride that success, but they give you a really shitty percentage cut. And before I got like representation and management and things like that, I didn't know anything. I just thought, oh, cool, people are interested in me. I can do cool things. And I had a specific merch company try and like take a huge advantage of me, and then turned into like legal stuff and
Who
everything,
was
which I won't go into,
it? Who
but
was it?
I'm not I don't even know if I'm allowed to say, but I'll let you know afterwards.
Was it Fanjoy? No, I'm just playing.
It was not Fanjoy.
Okay.
But things like that, yeah, for sure. And then suddenly people that you haven't heard from in a while will start messaging you, and some people who you grew up with or the town you grew up in, they were like, oh, we're doing a thing for the school. Can you like let Sean know that we're doing it? Can he give a shout out?
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, I get asked, like, I would love to, but you get asked so many times that if you open the door for one, then you feel bad about everybody else who's left out. And it just gets really weird. And then you don't really know how to navigate that. And for me, I'm a huge people pleaser and I hate when people don't like me. So I hate upsetting anybody. And that makes it even harder because I'm like, shit, I'm so sorry. A lot of times I would have ghosted people in the past because I'm just so afraid of saying no in case I
Yeah.
upset them.
So wait, how
And
do you
maybe some of that's still around, but
how do you differentiate between being practical and careful and keep that from going to full blown paranoia?
I don't know. It's kind of a per case
Yeah.
scenario. It all depends on where my morals sort of lie and where
Mm.
I align. And does this actually help me? And audiences will like it, and it's not selling myself out or anything like that. It's always stuff that I'm genuinely interested in, or stuff that I feel like my audience will get a kick out of, or something that will help accomplish something else. Like if we can do something big budget and something that we can get like fun out of or donate to charity or something like that, then I have no problem kind of doing a sponsorship for a certain thing.
Right.
Because then it can go towards a good thing. But it all kind of just depends on, is this good for me and my audience and my channel?
What was the last thing that it can be like a form of entertainment you consumed, or something that brought you joy that you didn't share or turn into some form of content?
Oh, Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh
Easy.
yeah. I still got to finish it. I got distracted, but it's such a fun game.
That, yeah, I got distracted should be on the box of that game. Because I played Last of Us 2, and that was the last thing I did before I took my break. And that was such a huge, monumental, whether you like it or don't, that's a conversation for another day, but it was such a huge, monumental piece of art in that industry. And sort of like, this is what AAA gaming can do if you throw millions and millions of dollars at it. That everything else after that, I was like, man, this is such a weird thing to come down off. I don't really know what to do after this. And it was also coinciding with these other feelings. So I was like, this is a good series to kind of end on and then go on a break. And then all of my break, I put like 40 hours into Tsushima. And it was really great because the whole time I was thinking, okay, I would have done this if I was recording and I would have said this here. But it was nice to not have to do that. It was nice to have something just for me to play in my own time.
Yeah, well, because it takes something that's normally like this regular consuming form of entertainment, this behavior, and then you're like, and now all of a sudden I have to be active with it. That's such a it's a dramatic shift. But wait, going back to Last of Us 2, because it's I don't know if my audience will appreciate it this much. Did you publicly give your opinion on that game?
Yes.
Okay,
I do at the end of every game. I kind of do like a little synopsis of it.
what was your opinion on that? Because I saw, like, there was a point in time, and it might even still be here. There was a point in time where it was like dangerous to throw your opinion out on that game or even say that you liked that game. I saw even massive and well-loved creators like Donkey getting waves of shit for praising it. Although I think, if I remember the video, he might have also talked some shit on people that hated the game. I can't remember. But
classic.
But like, when that situation's happening, do you feel a little, I don't know what your opinion on the game was, and then two, do you have any nerves about it, or are you at a place where you're like, whatever the reaction is, that's the reaction?
Yeah, I really like the game. There was a few missteps. I don't think it was as good as the first game, but I'm someone who really likes how stuff is crafted. So I love, because I wanted to get into gaming before I did it on YouTube. So I really like how the lighting is formed and how the sound design is produced and how much effort has to go into a monumental piece of art like this, and how, like, even if you don't like it, that's completely fine. That's why stuff like this exists. That's what good art does. Not to sound, again, pretentious about it, but if you absolutely hate it, that's absolutely valid as well. There's probably a ton of stuff that you love that I don't like at all. But that having that conversation around it, I think, was really important and really interesting to see. And some people could be written off as just being like, oh, they killed this character, game bad, and that's whatever. But some people had some insightful things to say on the pacing of the game and how the story was written and how it could be rearranged. And that's the kind of topics that I was really interested in. So I kind of took stuff from both sides. But at the end of the day, you kind of just have to go with your own opinions. People are there to watch me play a game. If they wanted to hear somebody tear it apart, they would have gone to somebody else. If they wanted to hear somebody just endlessly praise it, they'll just go to somebody else.
Right.
But if you're here to watch me play it, chances are you kind of want to hear my thoughts on it. And then you kind of just have to follow your own compass and give your own honest thoughts. Because nobody wants a panderer. Nobody wants somebody to just shit on something all the time, because then you just become miserable.
I don't know, man. There are a number of people that have created successful careers doing just that.
Yeah. You know what? I'll throw it back to the audience. Give me your thoughts on it.
I'll
do a Philly D on it.
You know what? I just want to throw the question out to you. No, because I like the game, but I was like, my public opinion on this isn't needed. I don't want to fucking deal with this on a weekend. I want to just hang out with my kids. I don't want to fucking deal with internet people.
Well, also, it's like you're listening to a dumbass from Ireland who just started videos in his log cabin talk about a game. Like, if you're putting that much stock into my opinion about a game that you can freely go play for yourself, then what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be getting so up in arms about somebody else's opinion about a game. Like, some reviewers hated it and people were like, oh, you're transphobic and you're this, that, or the other. some people who hated the game are absolutely transphobic and they're shitheads. But at the end of the day, it's just people's opinions on something, and you're reacting to their opinion with your opinion, and then everyone's reacting to your opinion with their opinion. It's like, we're all on the same team here. We all just want to like stuff.
Yeah, right.
Who cares if you didn't
I
like
hope
it?
that everyone goes into any form of entertainment hoping to like it. I think like
Yeah.
even in the past when I would review games and movies with a buddy, I always come at it from a point of like, how can I enjoy this fucking thing?
Yeah.
And even if it's, especially with movies, like if it's bad, is it comically bad or is it pacing? Is it nothing lands?
Yeah.
Is it even if it's not cringeworthy, it's exhausting, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And we all have those reviewers that kind of align with our own opinions, and you
Sure.
go to them to sort of validate if you have good taste in things. If they like it, then you're like, okay, whew,
I knew.
I'm a genius. But there's some people like Charlie Critical, Moist Critical, whatever you want to call him. He has
Sure.
a series called Moist Meter, and I really respect his opinion on things, but it's not always going to align with what I think. He doesn't like some games that I really like.
Yeah, you're not going to watch one of his videos and you're like, lost me on this one, man. I don't know. I used to respect you.
Yeah, you lost a sub, dude.
Oh, that is, it's like hilariously exhausting when people post
Yeah.
shit like that. You're like, you don't gotta announce it. I don't think it's
Yeah.
it's not having the impact that you think that it's having. You
Yeah.
just look like a clown.
Right. But it takes experience and time to realize that, because
Oh,
a couple of
yeah.
years ago, I would have been like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. Please come back, baby. I can change.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to be a rock smoothed down by my audience. Like I wanna become,
That's a really good way of saying it.
well,
I
because
think.
it's just ever flowing. Like, and it's very
Yeah.
easy to just become this thing rather than the person that you are. You can change because someone, hopefully in a decent manner, was like, actually, this is why I think this, and you're like, oh, interesting idea. But you don't see that sort of discourse in general anymore.
Yeah. And a review and a video is just someone's opinion being blasted out to everyone. It's not a conversation. A
Jack,
lot of what we say in videos is not conversation. It's just, here's my unfiltered thoughts coming out to you. You can react to it however the hell you want.
Sure. Yeah. I forget who said it recently, but it was something along the lines of complaining isn't conversation. And that
Yeah.
really, I was like, oh, I love that. I'm gonna turn that into a shirt, but also maybe live by it. Hey, really quick, welcome to another edition of My Dumb Face, thanking the fantastic sponsors of this podcast. We've got the fantastic Paint Your Life. You know, with the kids getting older and older by the day, although that is how time works, it feels like it's just going so fast, though I'll leave it there. You don't need my midlife crisis. It feels like every time I look away and then look back, they're a completely different, more grown-up human being. And so, you know, my wife wanted a painting of our family to hang up on the wall so we can just be like, remember this moment in our constantly changing lives. And that's where Paint Your Life comes in. You know, when I heard that at paintyourlife.com, you could have an original painting by a world-class artist done by hand from just a photo, and it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, I knew I found the perfect solution. And I mean, it is actually very affordable. And with their user-friendly platform, you can order a custom-made, hand-painted portrait in less than 5 minutes. And with a 4.9 customer rating on Trustpilot, you can rest easy that the quality will be awesome. And with Paint Your Life, you can choose from a team of world-class artists and work with them until every detail is perfect. You can send them any picture of yourself, your children, your family, your whatever. You could even combine multiple photos into one painting. You really cannot hit it enough how quick and easy this process is. And I mean, you get a hand-painted portrait in about 3 weeks. And on top of all of that, at paintyourlife.com, there is no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. And right now, as a limited time offer, get 20% off your painting. That's right, 20% off and free shipping. And to get this special offer, all you gotta do is text the word Phil to 64000. That is Phil to 64,000. Again, it is that simple. Just text Phil to 64000. Paint Your Life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. With that said, back to the podcast. I need a prediction from you. Is Fall Guys still going to be a big game in 6 to 12 months?
Yes. Will it be as big? I don't know. But we've seen the sales figures for it already kind of prove that it's a monumental success. Most downloaded PlayStation Plus game of all time. But it's just, it depends on how they handle it and how they tackle it going forward. And I think it's such a modular game that you can keep in like it has like 25 maps or something. You can keep in half of those and then replace like
Right.
8 of them or something like that. And you can plug in and out all these pieces that work and don't work. And there's some modes that really fucking need to die right now. I'm plugging something a bit more like skill
What
based,
needs
I
to
think.
die?
Oh, perfect match needs to fucking go.
Wait,
I
what? What
hate that
match?
mode. The one where you like have the
Oh,
fruit on the ground. No one ever gets eliminated on that mode.
it says you. That mode is the video game checkpoint for are you too drunk or high right now? That is what that checkpoint is. Because there are sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, this is an easy win, and there are other times that I'm like, okay, banana, cherry, orange, apple. Fuck, where's watermelon? Fuck, one.
Yeah.
Where's watermelon?
I never ever play that mode with other people who like to do that because I'm like, okay, banana, cherry, watermelon. Then they're like, banana, watermelon. I'm like, shut up. I need to get my zone. I'm bad at this enough already.
But I feel like
But
what I'm interested in is when it's going to be able to go to Xbox, but more specifically mobile. It feels like mobile is going to be
yeah,
this just dam breaking because it is so, as far as like games that you can easily play and you don't have to like, you know, Joe Blow doesn't have to be like, how do I connect my PlayStation 4 controller to this thing,
yeah,
right? It's easy controls. I feel like that's going to be
yeah.
what keeps it alive, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see with this second season to see if those like pull and drag mechanics make it different enough.
You know, I said at the start of this that I love people. This game's going to change my opinion on that.
Because of the pulling, because you don't think that's going to work
Yeah,
out.
trying to work with other people in that game is just sheer anarchy.
Yeah, I feel
It
like
just shows
if you,
like entropy at its truest form. You all start off perfectly symmetrical, and then chaos ensues by the end of it.
yeah, if you ever want to think like, can human beings work together or will we destroy one another? Just watch any video of slime climb. You're just like, eventually you play this game long enough where all of a sudden there's 6 people at the finish line like, come try
Yeah.
and pass us.
Well, that's what perfect match feels like, or the rollout, the one with the cylinders moving in opposite directions. Because now people are just bored and they're all grabbing each other. It's making a murderer the video game.
yeah. I played a game last night on Rollout, and I was like, we've been playing this for 2.5 minutes. No one like it. Just we have to do something.
Yeah, time is different in the Fall Guys universe. A minute and a half of trying to grab tails is the longest minute and a half of my entire life.
One of the last questions about not predictions. What's the next game that you're like, yes, I cannot wait, like for you personally, not just for content, like you cannot wait for it to come out?
I thought it was going to be Cyberpunk for a long time, but I feel like the longer that game, I mean, maybe it'll be amazing, and I would love to be wrong about it, but I feel like it's not going to live up to the hype. And it's just being teased for so long that I think people are just getting blue balled on it, and no climax to that is ever going to be satisfying. It's just like, oh God, get it out of me. But for me personally, I'm really excited about 12 Minutes. It's like a top-down game about a time loop, and it's just you, your girlfriend / fiance wife, I don't know, and then situations happen, but it changes every 12 minutes, and then you go back and do it again. And they just announced that Willem Dafoe and James McAvoy and Daisy Ridley are all doing the voices in it, which is really cool.
Oh wow!
And it's Annapurna Interactive are publishing it, which I'm always a huge fan of their games. So it's something that's being injected into the scene that I think is kind of needed, because we hear so much about Cyberpunk and Avengers and all these massive games, that it's nice to have these other type of games come in and like Fall Guys and just sideswipe you and be like, no, you can be massively successful with something that does not look like it should be successful in this sphere.
Yeah, no, I use my taste in games. I feel like is also changing. Outside of Fall Guys, almost everything is being pushed more and more away from multiplayer, more single player, just because like I grew up with, and like not grew up with, but when I played the most as kind of a teenager and then adult, or oh my God, I'm very old. Sorry. Yeah,
How old are you?
Yeah, and I'm 34, dude. I didn't feel my age until the last 3 months because I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna be 35, and this year, the pace of this year is the thing that has stressed me the most. I like made jokes about it on social media where I was like, I don't know how it feels like we got here so fast, but also at the same time, it feels like it's been 17 years since March. But
Yeah.
this is like the first time I really felt when people say like, oh yeah, when you get older, time flies. And especially because I see my kids just like they're one's actually going to be 3 tomorrow, the other is 6, and it's like they're changing at such a rapid pace that you're just like, oh, it's going, it's gone, it's done.
Yeah.
um and even when it's like a rough news week and I hit Thursday, I'm like, oh shit, another week is gone. And I'm
Hmm.
happy that I get to relax, but I'm also terrified that I lost another week. And so
Yeah.
I've been thinking more and more about, what am I trying to do with my time? How do I, still get that? Because I keep saying 14 years, I think, because I'm still trying to digest that number. I didn't really think about it. I thought it
It's
was like,
huge.
I thought it was like 10 until I actually looked at the post date. Um,
Wow.
and so it's one of those things of like, okay, how do I get fulfillment? Because for 14 years I've been trained to feel joy and accomplishment and worth because other people said, hey, good job. A bunch of people I've
Sure.
never
Yeah.
met that I do have a relationship with have, hey, good job. But then how do I
Plus,
make it?
you're getting plugged into the news sphere as your main topic. Like
Sure.
I delve into news very briefly through like Twitter timelines, and I'm already like, oh God, I'm exhausted. I can't imagine what that's like to do as your job to keep
Sure.
like.
Well,
Does that ever get to you?
a little bit, but I think of myself as it's not a perfect one-to-one comparison. But did you? I think they had to do every kid in the States had to read it. But did you read the Giver as a kid growing up?
No, I couldn't read as a child.
Really?
No, I could, but
Okay. I was like, that's more interesting than my story. No, but it was essentially like this is once I really want to say it's not a one-to-one comparison. I do not think of myself in this manner completely. But it's essentially like there's this society where, if I remember correctly, everything's essentially like black and white. You don't feel feelings, but there's this one person, the giver. I'm fucking this story up so bad. Everyone's gonna be like,
I know
really? You read
nothing
this?
about it, so it sounds
Perfect.
amazing to me. Keep
Hey,
going.
so this is actually this is a story I wrote. This is a book that I wrote called
Oh,
The
cool.
Giver. Yeah, and and so no one
My name is
experienced it.
Roald Dahl.
But there's like I think if I remember correctly, there's like almost like there's no mention of history or any of that. And there's this one person in the society that's kind of like deemed to take on all that. They feel all the feelings. They see all the
Hmm.
colors. They do that. I don't. It's not a one-to-one comparison. What I'm saying is I take on a ton in the world, not everything because it's impossible with my current setup of my show. But then I try and make that poison as quickly and understandably digestible um, for everyone else. And so that's
Right.
where I feel like a sense of worth of like there is so much confusion and there is so much just exhaustion because it's every day, every single fucking
Yeah.
day, and it just the
What's
norms
your
are.
antidote? What's your mental antidote for
My
that?
mental antidote, I don't have it. Because it's still happening. I try not to come off as too alarmist because but I don't want to
Hmm.
be a doomer. But it feels
Right.
like if you're paying attention and you're not an alarmist at this point, like I don't I have questions because it's like if you are super like I feel like I hate saying this because people can be like, oh, he's being crazy. I feel like I'm watching the democracy that I thought I knew die in broad daylight. And
Yeah.
it's happening because I think my generation or a good chunk of who is around right now haven't experienced the extremes of humanity. Like we've lived, even though there's a lot wrong in our country compared to other times in history, we've been living in fucking Disneyland. Not
Yeah.
everyone, not everyone. I kind of, you know,
Sure.
even growing up kind of lower income, I came up with a lot more privilege and opportunity than a lot of other people. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm genuinely concerned. Like I don't know. I've been trying to plan things out for next year. No idea. No idea what anything's going to look like. Everything feels like it's propped up on not to scare you, but it feels like everything's just kind of like propped up on some shit that's going to fall down any second.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a couple of causes every now and then where it's like, there shouldn't be any teams on this. Like, I stay away from politics and things like that because I just don't know enough about it. I don't trust my own opinions on a lot of it. So why
Mhm.
would I use my voice to try and influence all these other people?
Sure.
So you should be allowed to think for yourself. But when it comes to stuff like pandemics and Black Lives Matter and that kind of thing, I'm like, why are we so divided on this? Why are teams forming? I mean, I get it. I understand where the mentality comes from, and I can trace it back and find where that starts. But at the same time, there is some things where I'm like, yeah, it's kind of time to start ringing the bell on this and start getting people's attention, I think.
Is there anything that you ever feel pressured then in that aspect to talk on publicly? Because yeah, you are I guess you would be seen more as, because I'm in news and talking about that. But what are your thoughts around, yeah, I guess celebrities or people that came up for different reasons speaking out on issues?
It's it's so tricky because I when you have a huge audience, you feel this sense of responsibility. Kind of, it's more self inflicted. No one's telling me that I have to do anything,
Mm-hmm.
and technically you don't have to do anything if you don't want to, and that's fine. I don't bemoan any celebrity if they really just don't feel comfortable putting anything out there. Especially if you don't feel like you have all the information, because that's the scariest part. You don't want to feel like you picked a side and went for this cause, and then you turn around and it's all bullshit, and you put people all in the complete wrong direction
Mm,
because of the information you were given. So I try to champion the stuff where I'm like, again, the stuff that just feels so obviously like we should all be fighting for this thing right now. But I feel like some celebrities get a bit too involved in things and say stuff that they shouldn't, and then other celebrities maybe don't get involved enough. But again, who am I to tell another person what they should or should not be doing? All I have control over is what I do, and
hmm.
everything else outside of that is beyond my control.
Wait, all you have control over is what you do.
Yeah.
How do you mean?
I can make a video on YouTube and I can rally behind this cause. But then when it's done and I put it out into the world, I don't have control over what happens to it then after that.
Sure.
I can say this thing in a video, and then it's up to everybody else to kind of interpret it one way or the other. And all I can do is react to what they say, but I
Hmm.
have no control over what people do or what they say or what they think.
Does any of it, and I'm not projecting on it, does any of it feel like it comes from a place of like wanting to maintain the existing audience?
For a while, it did. I'm
Hmm.
kind of at that point now where I feel like being wishy washy on things is just not really an attractive quality in anybody. I feel
Yeah.
like if you believe in something, at least believe in it. Don't try and pander to everybody else. Don't try and be this like middle of the road person who's kind of all over the place, and your opinions and your thoughts can like shift on a dime just based on what people are saying.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the past I've done that a lot. I've been very kind of like back and forth because I just wanted people on the internet to like me, and I didn't want to upset anybody or piss anyone off or do the wrong thing. But the types of people that I look up to are people who are like, I feel like I align with sort of their thoughts and their moral compass and try to do the right thing. But the thing I admire about them is that they have their own opinions, their own thoughts, and they stick to them. Like you saying, like the Last of Us 2 thing, to put a a more vague point on it
Sure,
that's
sure,
not
sure.
so dangerous. But like Donkey going out and making a video knowing that his audience are probably not going to like this, it's like that's his thoughts.
Hmm.
He believed in what he was saying. Didn't matter if the audience didn't like it, but he's not pandering to them. And that's what I think is the most attractive quality. Regardless of if you agree with his opinions or not, at least he stuck to his guns. And that's what I'm trying to do more of as I go forward.
So what things do you think that you've spoken out on and spoken or like stuck to your guns on?
Um, I think more recently it's all the like pandemic stuff and Black
Hmm.
Lives Matter and things like that. Because when you put stuff out on the internet, people are going to take it a million different ways. And everything
Yeah.
I was saying on it, every sentence was hung upon, and I was like, "Oh, so you mean this?" I'm like, "Obviously, I don't mean that. You're trying to put a lot more words into my mouth, and sure, I could have worded this better, and that's on me."
Hmm.
But some things like that, there's a lot of pushback on sort of transformative topics happening in the world. Anything that's sort of trying to progress the world forward for what I believe is in a positive direction, there's always going to be blowback. And it's hard to not buckle under that unless you feel like you're doing the right thing. And for me, I kind of want to look back in time and be like, no, I did the right thing. It doesn't really matter what they're saying. I'm glad I didn't falter. I'm glad I didn't try and like appease that side of it, because I don't respect that side of it. I don't respect their opinion. I would not go to that person for advice.
Right.
So why would I listen to them?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's hard to do when you're constantly getting hit is you're not taking in or maybe younger creators or people that haven't experienced it. You're not taking into account the quality of the source, right?
Right.
right? Because
Yeah.
some 12-year-old can say something and you take it as like the most critical voice in your head saying the same thing, and you're like, that's valid.
Yeah.
That's valid.
Well, that's the scary thing, is that everyone's the same age on the internet. When you
Yeah.
see every single tweet, it's from the same age group in your head for some reason. And not to say that I'm like above feedback or criticism. That's not the point that I'm trying to make
I
at
mean, no,
all.
here's the thing. So your point of people like picking apart sentences, that's always possible, right? The clipping
Yeah.
is a constant tactic. But it sounds like you're talking about you have held beliefs. You're an imperfect person that might not be able to say things the way that makes it so 99.9% of people like consume it the way that you wanted to. But
Yeah.
you're also not, I mean, I definitely have come across people who will immediately flip when pressured.
Yeah.
But I think having not necessarily a healthy in between, being researched enough, know yourself enough, know what is right in the world, which I think stems initially from a place of, if you're not hurting anybody else, live your fucking life, be happy.
Exactly.
Care about one another. And then there's going to be people that for whatever reason, often twisted, are going to push back against it. Like, and when you talk about the pandemic stuff, I imagine you're talking about like masks, just like wear a fucking mask.
Yeah.
Like it's not,
Even the simplest things.
yeah, it's and I think that's, for me, that's been one of the frustrating things, because it's like I get the the having the work from home or people losing the jobs, stuff like that. That's such an overwhelming situation. But the idea of, if you have access to wearing a mask and people being like, I don't care if I get sick, and it's like, how many fucking times do people have to tell you it's not about you, dude? It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about fucking other people. I think that's what drives me crazy when I was watching this clip of people, I think it was lining up for one of the recent Trump rallies, and there were like 3 people in a line of just hundreds and hundreds, and there were probably more, but just on camera there's like 3 people had masks, and I was like, oh man, I guess it's the thought that counts to a certain degree for you, but it's not panning out.
You also see people like go to protests and stuff, and I'm like, I really stand behind that, but please be careful, for the love of God.
Yeah, where
You're going out to protest and you're not wearing masks, and it's like you're doing a good thing, but you're also being irresponsible as you do it. And again, I don't really want to tell people what to do, but it's like, wearing a mask, I feel like, is easy. The worst thing that can happen is that you look silly. If you don't believe in masks and you don't think it does anything, you just look silly, and that's it.
That's the thing that's, I think, frustrating to me, is like, I totally understand, like, especially in America, like freedom, freedom, freedom. That's what we were fucking raised on. It was like, like I grew up, they like, people hate us because our freedom. But it's like, once again, it's not something that's just affecting you. I think of it as like, and there was a mindset in the beginning of like, if someone, especially in the beginning when people were getting caught, like people were on film coughing on someone, it was like, oh, that's, people understood the danger of that situation. People understood that it wasn't about personal health, it was about others. And so if we're talking about like what could hurt another individual, and that's, I feel like I don't rage on my show because I'm trying to consistently turn out something very fast, but like that whole situation drives me fucking batty. Like, and the most recent push is like, actually only I think it's like only 6% of people died just from COVID. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And it was like, well, because they had other conditions. I was like high blood pressure? I have high blood pressure. So if I die after I get COVID didn't kill me? That's your fucking argument?
Yeah. Jeez.
I don't know.
I mean, again, you don't want to get mad about it, because I feel like anger and rage is just such an unproductive emotion. There's better ways of handling it, and
I agree and disagree. I agree and disagree. I think it's a raw fuel that needs to be refined. Otherwise, it will blow up in your face.
Sure. I guess what I should say, for me, it's very unproductive. I don't think I get anything done when I get mad at something. And I feel like, because I've been reading a lot of stuff about like philosophy, and especially Stoicism. I keep talking about it. People are memeing the shit out of me because I talk about it so much lately. But it's that stuff about like, it's fine to get angry at something first, but it's how you react to it that is really important. And people who get angry do more damage to themselves than they do to other people. And for me, I feel like anger just damages my character and me as a person more than it can do anything to anybody else. I feel like I'm just self-combusting at that point. And they always talk about like using it as a teaching point, that the virtues you've learned is a good teaching point to be like, look, I don't agree with that, but here's what I've learned. Maybe this can help, and try and like put it in sort of a productive spin. But yeah, some of this stuff is like, you guys are making it real hard, because you look at some videos and I'm like, I know this video is just set out to try and make me angry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
And especially Fall Guys. Stoicism does not fucking exist when you play Fall Guys.
But wait, so what's the general idea behind Stoicism?
Oh, I don't know if I can boil it down, and people who study it a lot more will probably call me out.
No, okay. So I'm gonna set you up for success then. In the roughest but quickest way for an idiot like me, what are the general ideas or ideals behind it?
It's, for me, the stuff I got out of it was how to deal with people and how to deal with your own reactions to other people and how to endure the sufferings that can kind of come about. It talks a lot about facing your own mortality all the time, that we're all, it's that old adage that you always hear, like, we're all going the same way, so we're all on the same team, like we're all going to end up as dust, so none of this shit matters, why take it with you? And it's, for me, it helped me deal with like my anger towards myself, comparing myself to other people, why I judge other people so quickly sometimes. Like, a lot of my upbringing was very judgmental and very reactive. So it's about listening to that, but realizing that it says more about me than it does about other people. That there's this sort of role that I've built up in my head that people have kind of like cut between, that I'm offended by.
Right.
And realizing like, no, that's just what I think is the right thing to do, and they're not doing it the way I would have done it. So it says more about me than it does about the other person doing it.
When you say the judgment you face as a child, what are you talking about there?
Just, I think, I mean, I don't want to stereotype too much, but I think Irish people from my generation were just very like, they were just very cranky all the time. It was never about like, there's always this thing I hear how like an American person or somebody would look at a person who has a mansion on a hill and go like, man, good for him, I want to be there someday. But Irish people would try and take him down and be like, fuck that guy, he thinks he's better than the rest of us, I hate that guy.
I might be Irish then. I grew up hating rich people.
Yeah, but it's that sort of like trying to take people down rather than trying to build yourself up. You don't take inspiration from people, you just try and knock everybody down to your level. And I feel like I kind of did that a lot when I was younger. And a lot of the jokes that I would make would be self-deprecating and very condescending and sarcastic. I'm trying to just break out of that and realize, like, when I remember being young and I'd see somebody be a certain type of person on the street, like a heavyset person, and my brain would just immediately go to like insults. I'm like, and now that I'm older, I'm like, why the fuck did I ever do that? That's so horrible. And it's trying to break those sort of cycles that I went through and those sort of patterns that I formed when I was a kid.
That is, and it's hard. It's definitely hard, just because I feel like, do you think that it changed from just you reading and like researching and thinking on it, or was it just the more people that you met and like when you meet people, it humanizes them?
Yeah, absolutely the latter. I think meeting so many different people from so many different walks of life. And when I went on tour, I talked about it at the end as well, that I realized that I come from nothing. I come from such a small town, and I put in a lot of work, but I also got very lucky with where I am and the voice that I have and to be able to do what I do. So it's far from me to be able to judge other people like that. But you hear so many people who come from so many different ethnicities, sexes, orientations, the types of faiths that they have, the people that they're into, and all these different things, that it just broadens your mind. I feel like the more you travel, the more people you meet. It's so hard to be narrow-minded in that sense, because I just see so much of myself reflected in so many other people, and then so much of their struggles and things that I had no idea about. I don't know what it's like to grow up as a teenager who's not comfortable with their body and feels like a completely different person. So I try to educate myself on that rather than kind of be distant from it, because then you can use your voice to kind of champion those people and try and lead their fight in the right direction.
Totally. Growing, when you were growing up, was it heavily Catholic?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like, are
yeah,
you
for sure.
Are you still Catholic?
No,
I only asked
I'd say
because
more
I was raised Catholic, and yeah, everyone I knew in New York that was Catholic, it was like Irish or Italian.
yeah, I feel like being as extremely Catholic as Ireland was growing up kind of turned me off of it.
Hmm.
It kind of did the opposite of what it should do. I'd say I'm more agnostic now than
Sure.
atheist. I'd like to believe there's something out there someday.
I hope. I think
I
about that.
want,
I feel like I've somehow asked like the last three people. Half the time it's off camera, but I'm like, is it more scary if it goes on forever or if it just ends? I don't know.
I don't know. I've always been a more scientific kind of mind. So the idea of being like an accident in the universe was almost cooler to me than anything else.
Then
I
yeah, that you
like
have this
that idea.
plan.
Yeah. But yeah, Ireland was super Catholic when I was growing up. Like the church ruled more than the government almost.
Does it
It
feel
was
like
kind of
it's?
coming off the tail end of that when I was growing up.
Well, I was gonna say, does it feel like it's drastically changed?
Yeah, I think we had. I haven't been again. I don't know the politics of Ireland as well as I
Sure.
probably should, and I feel bad about that. But we were talking about like abortion laws and stuff in Ireland recently, and I'm pretty sure it passed, which is a huge thing when you think about how Catholic and religious
Hmm.
Ireland is. Like every time we're portrayed in media, growing up was always like fiddly tea, Catholicism and potatoes.
Hey, it's me again. I hope you're still enjoying the podcast. I just want to take a second to thank one of the other sponsors of today's episode, Drops. You know, during the past few months, we've all become more conscious of cleanliness and staying home, and that's where Drops comes in. Drops delivers eco-friendly cleaning products directly to your door that contain plant-based ingredients. Their products are effective and great for the planet with carbon-neutral shipping. Drops even pioneered the laundry detergent pod back in 2005, way before other brands, being the first to say goodbye to those huge jugs of detergent. And they've got pods for sensitive skin, babies, stains and odors, and a chlorine-free bleach alternative called Oxy Booster Pods, as well as reusable wool dryer balls that can replace your normal disposable dryer sheets for over 1,000 loads. And they even have dishwasher detergent pods as well. Guided by convenience with a conscience, Drop ships in recyclable, compostable packaging, whereas traditional liquid detergents use high-density polyethylene bottles, 68% of which contribute to 660 billion pounds of plastic waste annually that all ends up in our oceans and waterways. And if you're wondering, yes, they are compatible with all washing machines. With 10,000 five-star reviews, Drops is a truly proven game changer. So to check them out, just head on over to drops.com/DeFranco to get $15 off your first order and subscribe to save 25% plus free carbon neutral shipping. And with all that said, thank you, you're welcome. And now back to the podcast. Would you say, oh, wait, so obviously this is going to be a generalization. Who do you, because I know that you've toured, what are the top 3 countries as far as nice people are concerned?
Oh shit! Don't do this to me.
I'm doing it.
I
was like, I got mine.
It's really, I mean, it's weird to say because I'm biased towards Ireland because when I came back to there, that was the last show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the prodigal son returns home. So I had like a huge sort of reaction out of those people. But I don't know, I feel like people on the West Coast of America were really nice.
Mm.
Some people in the Midwest and kind of East Coast were very heckler-ish. But maybe it was just because we were doing the show for that long. That was like a later leg, and maybe I got better at tuning it out. But a lot of countries in Europe were really nice. I mean, everyone was nice. Well, I was doing a tour about myself, so everyone who was coming were like, "Yay!"
No, but I was gonna say because I was like the Irish, even though it's a small chunk of my audience, it was the best live event that I ever did. It was like the nicest people, followed by it's always a toss up between Vancouver, Toronto, and Canada. And then
the Canadians are really nice.
Yeah, and then I don't know. Then it's like a because in the United States, each show is like to your point, it is different. When I was in Chicago, it was definitely louder and not like no ill intent, but more hecklerish.
Yeah.
But yeah, our biggest shows were outside of big cities. I don't know if it was did that end up being the case for you or not really? Because you're more of a traveling show, so you'd be even in LA, you'd be seen as kind of like I have to see him now because he's never going to do it again.
Yeah, I was told that LA shows would be hard to like sell tickets to because so much stuff kind of comes through and it was in a weird location. No one really wanted to go downtown because it's a pain in the ass to get through traffic. But I was lucky enough to sell that out, so I don't know. I don't really have a good barometer for that. I only did one tour around each section, so maybe if I go again, I'll have a better barometer. I will say that Salt Lake City was one of the harder crowds to try and get to laugh.
Yeah.
because I had a couple of jokes that were like, they weren't like shitting on religion, but it was my experience as like an altar boy being a Catholic as a kid. And I made like, I think I made a priest altar boy joke, like a little tongue in cheek kind of one. And they were all, they were the only audience to kind of like half boo me because of it. But if anything, it kind of bolstered me because all the other shows laughed their asses off at the joke. So I was like, I'm not wrong. You're wrong. But it was fascinating to just see which states and which countries reacted to certain things.
Yeah, I was like, I think the only time that I've been booed in a way that it wasn't like something I intended and then to bring it back was in Ireland. It was my first live show ever, and I randomly mentioned how I liked British accents, and I was like, and then once they booed, and I was like, because they're almost as good as Irish accents, and it was like, we brought it back, and I was, I was like, oh, fuck. That was close.
Yeah, just give us a compliment. We're not used to them.
All right, so Jack, I'm gonna switch to these game cards. So if you're like, where'd this question fucking come out of? Because I know that we've just kind of been having a conversation. We're pivoting now.
Let's go for it.
Pivot.
Let's roll.
All right. I want you to describe an experience that you wish that you'll have in the future.
Oh wow. Whew. I'm trying to think how self-fulfilling I want it to be.
All right.
I want to be at a point where I can leave a lot of this stuff behind me and have that moment where you sit back and went, yes, I gave it my all. I did really well. And I left some really good stuff behind me that I came and I didn't change the entire world for the better, but I at least had some sort of voice to try and progress things in the right direction.
And then what do you do?
Then I sit in my porch drinking whiskey.
And you die in 2 months.
Yeah. I know, I'd probably still be playing video games. Who knows?
Yeah, I constantly deal with that. I'm like, and then what do? I have to do something that's not just like, because I want to watch my kids grow up, and I love my friends and family.
What makes you happy outside of this? Like, what do you do in your spare time right now?
Well, it's drastically changed given the past few months. And right now, I have blinders on. I have blinders on until November. I have blinders on because that's when our election is. Then I have blinders on for the end of March because that's when I move out of this facility. So like the way that I've been able to like kind of not fully crack over the last few months, because like we've talked about, I just have to deal with and like go through the worst every day.
Sure.
Is it's like, what am I going to do with the studio? What does that mean as far as any content outside of that? Right now we've been trying to move into this house, but it's taken a long time because of the pandemic. And so it's like we have these things like that I can focus on, because outside of that, it really is just video games. And in the past week, to deal with stress, I've started cycling every day for at least an hour.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, because I just got to get it out. Like when I was in the best shape of my life, but also kind of like most mentally healthy, it was when I was biking about an hour a day. Because I used to bike into the office, and it was like, yes, it was very nice to have very massive thighs and calves, but it was also just like, there's something about just sweating out your anger. Cause like that's what I would do. And so, when we talk about anger, I have a really rough relationship with it, because it's what gave me everything in my life. Cause I figured out how to refine it. But now I don't feel that anymore. I'm sad and exhausted. So I'm just like, I want to be like motivated by anger again, but I just don't have it. Like I don't want to fight anymore, man. I want to be happy.
Dude, haven't you watched Avatar: The Last Airbender? You got to find how to use your firebending outside of rage.
So I'm going to get to that. I'm only 12 episodes into the first season. The
first season's hard to get through, I think.
Oh, compared to
it really only starts clicking towards the end, but the next seasons you're in for a ride.
Okay, I got to do that. I feel like especially this Friday that we're filming everything, it went from entertainment, like no new entertainment, to all of a sudden there's like a ton of stuff. I'm like, oh, I got The Boys, Mulan came out. All this other stuff. Well, the Avengers, I'm gonna play for 12, and then I'm not gonna do anything in the post game. But yeah,
I don't even know if I'll touch that game. Everything I've seen of it, I'm like,
yeah, no, it's not.
whatever.
It's so far, it's not anything special. I'm literally so that's I end up playing games half the time because of my son, because he was like, oh, Cap, we gotta watch Cap.
That's way more fun though.
Oh yeah, that's more fun. Except for the fact that like I'm not at a point where I can play him yet. And so he's like, "Where is he?" And I'm like, "He's not. I don't think he's really dead, man. We gotta just keep plowing through this game."
We're going to have a hard conversation. Sometimes,
but I have found that video games is so far, because it was this. I had a similar experience when I was a kid. It's been a great educational tool for my son so far, and I mean that both as far as like emotionally and as like a treat for him furthering himself when it comes to like math and stuff like that. So
yeah,
like I felt this swelling of pride. He's 6. He's so young, and he didn't take to video games very easily early on, because you have some kids that are like 5 and they're like beat it.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't the case, but he I want to say 2 weeks ago beat Mario Odyssey, and
that's a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one. And because I was like, I know he's gonna try and get me to beat the final bosses. Like I can't give in to this kid. And I remember I'm riding my bike, I'm cycling, and he's getting so frustrated because he's on the level in Mario Odyssey where it's you're going against like the 4 main bosses, and you have to use like the bird to flip yourself up. And he's having a hard time because he's not comprehending that he can only stick his beak in wood and he can't stick his beak in metal. And he's like, I'm so angry. And I was like, hey, we don't freak out. We don't freak out like that. What do we do when we lose? We try again. You can't put the beak in the metal. You're going to keep doing this and you're going to get it. And it took him like just 2 more tries. And then he was so pumped on himself. He's like, yeah. And now, whether it be that or him having trouble with something else, if he fails, he's like, it's okay, I can try again. And I'm like, yes. Yes. I was like, I didn't learn that until him. Yeah, I was like, I didn't learn that until I was 17. I was like, just keep up with this, dude.
Oh no, I got violently angry at video games when I was a kid. Yeah. I wish I had that. I wish I had somebody to tell me that, to be like, no, it's fine, just go again.
Yeah. No, I feel like the only reason I ended up being really good at math is I had a tutor when I was really young that if I finished like a certain number of worksheets, he'd let me play 30 minutes of Street Fighter. And I was for some reason I was like, I hate Street Fighter now. Suck at it. I'm horrible. But as a kid, I was like, that was the proper way to motivate me.
Damn. So next up for your son is Bloodborne.
Next up. Dude, no, I'm not playing any game that the intent is to make me furious, because that's in line with that, right? Or no?
See, Phil, that says more about you than it does about the game.
Well, like, okay, so for example, like I'm not going to go through the Dark Souls franchise. That's not where I'm at right now. My son, once again, 50% of games I play, my son pushed Cuphead on me. There was a week where I held an emotional grudge against my son because that is an infuriating game.
It really is. Even I got annoyed at that game.
I just got to the devil last week, and I was like, I'll get to it eventually.
You're at the end. It's fine.
Yeah, or not the devil, the dice guy.
Oh yeah, that's even worse. The devil's like a cakewalk after that.
Yeah. But I don't play video games to prove anything for myself. When I grew up, if there was like hard mode, yes. Now, normal. I'm not doing easy, but normal, which is essentially easy for anyone that grew up with video games as a kid.
Yeah, same as me. I'm not here to like prove myself to anybody. It's cool to be able to say you did it, and I respect the people who are the best of the best, but it's not my bag.
Okay, so here's another one. So other than politics, what are the subjects you avoid talking about and why?
Usually religion for the most part. Because
so that thing I made you talk about a second ago. Good.
Yeah, just cut that out. No, I mean, when it's like brought up, I don't mind, especially in this sort of like conversational aspect.
Sure.
But I don't like forcing any beliefs on people, because when I was younger, that's all it was my parents forcing that belief on me. And like, we go to church every Saturday evening, like you have to go and do all this stuff. And I got so bored of it and so annoyed with it that I ended up almost resenting a part of them for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to tell other people that they need to go do a certain thing or this, that, or the other. And I don't have any answers. I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to have them. What I believe is just what I believe. And I've met so many other different people from so many different other types of faiths that I'm like, what do I know?
Right.
It's like, I don't believe in any of this, but if you believe in it, then go for it. My grandmother was very, very religious. She would pray for hours every day. And I think even before she died, she didn't know that I didn't believe anymore, but it brought her so much peace because there's almost a meditative quality to it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're sitting and praying and you're getting your thoughts out, you're getting your wishes out, you feel like someone's listening to you. In a way, it's almost like a role model type of thing. Like I want to like be good enough for you. So you're just trying to live your life in the right way. And if that's, I don't like the oppressive side of it, but if you're just trying to live your life the right way and do the right thing, then go for it. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, to the point of meditation, when I think back to when I was raised Catholic. Before bed, I would kneel, pray. There was an aspect of it where it when I try and meditate now, I'm like, oh, this is a little bit similar because I'm organizing the stuff that I care about in my life. Right, I'm putting like some mental energy towards that for a moment. I'm letting it kind of just be there so that I can focus in on the other stuff that I'm having to deal with in my day to day. To a point of like, if it's anything goal related, I'm keeping my eyes on the prize. But then there's the other stuff. If everything was just like, if you're not hurting anybody else, is chill, which is morally there in a number of these books there's stuff like that, but it's it's the stuff that starts going past love thy neighbor that I think is a bit troublesome sometimes,
because that quality of like meditation is stuff that I've gotten into in the last year. And again, the philosophical sides of it and the cognitive behavioral therapies of it, there's a technique to find a role model in your life and react to like, how would they react to this situation?
Mm-hmm.
I want to have them feel like they're watching you at all times. So you want to prove to them that you're doing the right thing and you're being good about your life and you're just doing what's fun for you and trying to impress them almost. And that, I feel like that's kind of the same way. It's like, what would Jesus do is always that phrase that people always say. And that's basically at the base level is the same type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have somebody you look up to and you want to show that you're doing the right thing. And I think that kind of helps keep you on the straight and narrow.
So Jack, who is your role model then?
I have a few different ones for different reasons. Like my oldest brother is a role model for me in like my personal life, and he's a great dad. He went through a lot of addiction when he was younger, a lot of very dark things, and he came out the other side of it like the best person ever. And I always looked up to him for that. And in some ways, he was almost my father figure in a lot of ways because he was closer to my age than my dad was. My dad's like old. He's in his 80s. So there was such a generational divide that it was so hard to connect with him, but my brother kind of like bridged that gap.
Mm-hmm.
And then just personality wise, someone like Ryan Reynolds is always someone that I always looked up to.
Sure.
Even when I was a kid, I was like, no one has a bad thing to say about him.
No.
And he always seems to be going in the right direction. He's doing so much like social good in the world right now. His businesses are always fun. He's having fun with life. I'm like, that's kind of where I'd like to be.
So those two you think are standouts to you?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll shift as time goes on. And I'm sure I have other, like, for drumming, it's Danny Carey from Tool. He's always like a monster behind the kit, but I can't really put that into my everyday life. So who would be your role models then, day to day?
I mean, now it's hard for me to, I don't know if I have any, but I'm also like, once again, the part of the reason I have these lines in the sand is I'm barely keeping it together as far as like what I want to do. Like I'm doing what I'm doing now out of a feeling of responsibility because everything's so insane that I haven't really had time to look outward. It's just kind of me looking inward to keep shit together. But as a kid, it was two people. It was my father, because he has a skill. He still to this day has a skill that I will never possess, and that is the salesman quality. I look like I'm so unsure of myself usually that I look like I'm stealing shit from a place that I'm not stealing shit. I look like I don't have faith in myself. And he has the ability to convince people of stuff that are sometimes to his benefit, but sometimes just in general when he's just fucking winging it. And I've never possessed that. I mean, I've talked about it on past podcasts, like back when it made sense that it could actually happen. Like I got catfished as a much younger man, and it was around the time where it made
Wow.
sense that not everyone had a camera in their pocket, right?
Yeah.
But we had like, because around then it was like we had this collective group of friends, and she catfished me to the point that I thought I was moving to New York. I fucking drove up there. It was a dilapidated house that no one lived in. So I ended up having like no money to my name. I barely made it back home, and no one in our online friend group believed me. Like no one,
Wow.
everyone thought like she was actually this girl that had been like attacked in Central Park. Like none that was, we did all this research. None of it's true. It's just this crazy, insane person that like controlled 20 online profiles. And even though I had truth on my side and I had all this stuff, I couldn't convince anybody. And so I think that's an extreme example of it, but he always had this like salesman quality, and he was also the most loving person. He had
Hmm.
the benefit of initially being weekend dad because my parents were split up. So it was like every time I got to see my dad, we got to go on a fucking roller coaster. So he got to play on easy mode for a number of years. And then only later in
Yeah.
life did he have to be like hard dad, like you need to do stuff with your life.
Sure.
But it always came from a place of love, of he didn't my success wasn't something, you see this sometimes with parents. My success was never based off of it'll make him look good. You see that a lot in LA, of the way that parents they'll like brag on their kid, but in a way that it's like something they provided, like the school they go to, right? It's like, right.
Right.
So it's like an example of them. Whereas the success he wanted from me wasn't representative of him. It was, he just wanted something good for me. And I didn't, especially as a kid, maybe you don't comprehend it until much later in life, but that's somewhat rare. That
Yeah.
someone can make everything about you with no I involved. So that, and so yeah, so him, and then for no reason Sylvester Stallone. uh the Rocky movies
Okay.
like just showed me like, it was like the underdog thing because I didn't have much growing up, and so like the idea, especially I took like a lot of pride in being Italian, and so like I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm just like this Italian kid with nothing, that I'm gonna be this big thing. So like the underdog story, but that's not necessarily unique. I feel like every generation has like the underdog guy.
I
Um,
mean, it's not a bad thing. No need to talk it down.
no, but I think
Um,
those, and then yeah, I don't think I have. I feel like I just, on my next break, which will hopefully be like December 20th to January something. I think I'm just gonna look outward more. Like yes, be with my family, but just consume, because
yeah.
it's that's the only way you kind of get growth, is if you break apart from what you're used to and invite the different.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I did on my break, was just, it was a lot of like self-reflecting and then realizing like, what do I want? Where do I want to go with all of this? And then I feel like I've like ridden the bull, and then you get off and it's like, shit, where do I go now? Because stuff doesn't like grow the way it used to, and some stuff kind of like slows down, and then you start worrying like, shit, am I irrelevant? Are people not caring about me? Am I
Mm,
doing something wrong? So I kind of got to that point where it's like, I just want to relax. Like I've done so much. I have this great audience, and we can just sit back and relax and have fun with it and just see where it takes us. And it doesn't always have to be climbing. You don't always have to climb the mountain. Sometimes you can reach the top of it. It's like, just go down, climb another mountain, like climb a hill. It doesn't always have to be like the peak.
yeah, well, because it's sometimes hard to then appreciate it. But actually, so on like the week before you come back, are you more excited or more anxious?
I think I was more anxious than I was anything, because there was a part of me, it was more like the 2 weeks before I came back that I was
Hmm.
like, oh man, it's almost over. And August 1st was coming up, because I took a break at July 1st and said it would be at least a month. And then August 1st turned around and I was like, I need more. So I think I extended it like a week or 10 days
Yeah.
more. And then it wasn't until I started like sitting down being like, okay, what do I want to record when I'm back? What's the first things? And then all these ideas started to fire up, and I had this long list of things that I wanted to do. And that was what got me way more excited, because I realized I was starting to make the videos then for creativity rather than just that obligation or
Right.
self-inflicted responsibility of being like, it has to be every day. And then you end up recording something that's shit just to get a video out. So I pulled myself back and realized, no, it doesn't have to be every day, bro, anymore. I can just go every other day. It's a less catchy song title, but
every other day, bro.
For me, mentally, it was better because I have all these like calls for like coffee and like management and cloak and all these other things that are going on that I feel like some days I just need a day for calls. And if I have to record a video during that, then I'm just not going to record anything that anybody wants to watch. And I won't want to watch myself. So what's the point?
Yeah, no, that's essentially my Fridays now. It's either I switched the podcast every other week, and then like Fridays I get to do stuff that I want day. Like the podcast for me, it's just fun. Like it's just we're living in very lonely times, and I was like, I just want to talk to people that interest me.
Sure.
Don't like, so we're not dealing with any headhunters or anyone else. We're just like, I'm just reaching out in DMs, and then just calls. But to your point of like every day, I think that's probably going to be my biggest change after the election is the Monday to Thursday schedule. Because there's some videos that it's just like, oh, I'm forcing this. This today didn't need a day. We're just doing it for like the half of the audience that make sure is like they're there at launch time. And figuring out how do we do that in a way that still feels good, because it's like if I go to once a week, it'll kill the show. So it's like, what's the balance? And I don't know if you ever find the balance. I think you kind of just there's the balance for that time. You figure that out for the moment.
I mean, it doesn't always have to be. I think I've learned as well. It doesn't have to be strict either. Like some weeks, maybe I'll upload 4 videos. The next week, maybe 3. Like it doesn't have to be okay every second day now. It can just be whatever you want. And I think it's also good for the audience, because I feel like a lot of people who watch everyday content, a lot of that is meditation for them. It's sort of that behavioral thing that they get used to, and then they rely on it so heavily to get their joy out of their day. And if that's gone, then they're like, oh crap, what do I do with myself? So I'm always trying to let people know, like, no, it's like, go do stuff. You don't always have to watch me. I shouldn't be your source of happiness. I don't think any external source should be your source of happiness. That always comes from within. And you always have to try and find that thing that like keeps you going. And I don't know, go read a book, cycle a bike, play with your kids, something like that. I think is always interesting to do, because that's what I'm trying to do with my time off now, is do things that are just like, okay, this is me time. I don't want to have to think about anything.
Yeah. Hey, I hope you're still enjoying the podcast and not for some reason hate watching. Although I guess either way, still thank you. With that said, I wanted to take a second to thank one of our fantastic sponsors, herohealth.com/DeFranco. You know, remembering to take medication can be tough, and forgetting is annoyingly easy. Believe me, I know from personal experience. There were days in the past where I was like, I definitely took 0 to 3 of my pills today. I have no idea. Did I take it, or did I just think about taking it? But what can be even harder is if you're helping someone you care about with their own pills, and that's why Hero is so amazing. It's basically your medicine cabinet, but reinvented. The Hero Pill Dispenser sorts all of your daily medications and delivers them with a push of a button. It is really that simple. One of the best parts about Hero is that if the medication is not taken on schedule, the Hero app will actually send you a notification, or a notification to a family member or any other listed caregiver, right? Making sure that a dose is never missed. Basically, Hero makes it simple and easy to make sure you or a loved one always stays on track and you get the right meds at the right time every time. A Hero membership includes the app, the pill dispenser, and their 24/7 customer service for just $1 a day. They even have an optional service that delivers medication directly to your door as well. And right now, if you go to herohealth.com/DeFranco, you'll get 50% off the initiation fee and a 30-day risk-free trial with a money-back guarantee. Don't forget, that's herohealth.com/DeFranco. Be sure to check Hero Health out today. But with that said, thank you, you're welcome, and back to the podcast. Well, so what if you get to a point where you're just like, okay, I'm getting a little burnt out, I'm getting a little stressed, what at the same time makes you go, and around this time is when I should also launch a whole nother business?
Well, that sadly was supposed to launch like a month prior.
Yeah.
And then it was supposed to come out, and then pandemic stuff happened and Black Lives Matter stuff happened. So we kept pushing it to just be cognizant of what's going on in the world. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, everything's in place. We can launch this now, and it feels like a good time. So why not? And I felt like so much of my part of it had already been done, like my sitting down, tasting the coffee, getting the flavor profile, figuring out what beans are supposed to be. And what the packaging looks like and the logo and all that, that when it launched, all I had to do was say like, here it is.
Right.
And that was it. And then the kind of internet machine did the rest of it. So I didn't really have to pay attention to it too much other than what I wanted to pay attention to. And then we sold out. So it was like, okay, well, it's all manufacturing after that. And I can't really do anything else right now either.
What's the goal of the company?
Just have a decent cup of coffee, to have like an actual brand that I'm proud of. That it's not, I don't want to make a flash in the pan company. I feel like a lot of stuff that YouTubers make is very much like, this is a meme on my channel right now and I can make money out of it. And I don't, well, not to put words in people's mouths, that's unfair to do, but I feel like a lot of the stuff I've wanted to make in the past was because of that. A lot of like, oh, this is a good idea. And then by the time it's made, it's like the joke's kind of over.
Right.
So I'm like, God, why did I make this? And then it's hard to follow through with it. So coffee was something that I've always been interested in. I thought about getting sponsored by a coffee company. And then the idea came up and I was like, I could just start my own brand and go from there. And then it was just, I love the whole process of trying to figure out like, okay, I did like so many different taste tests and I had never done that before, and learned how to pour coffee and learned what's in coffee and how it's made and things like that were really interesting. And I don't know, I just want to see it grow and maybe be on store shelves someday, but just have a very decent everyday cup of coffee for people. I'm not trying to change the game or have like the best tasting coffee in the world, but at least also for people who are not into like buying their beans and grinding them themselves and having a pour over. This is a really great way of like bridging that gap.
Sure.
I mean, like this is the stuff that I'm into. A lot of you probably aren't into it as my audience, but you hear me talk about coffee a lot, that maybe I can like marry this idea together and like come along. And like, coffee's great. I really like it.
Taste it. For you, is there a point where you're like, and then we would sell it? That makes sense.
Not right now. I don't
Let's
think.
say someone
I think
comes in and they're like, Jack, we love it. Here's a check for $50 million, but you have to stay out of this space.
No.
Really?
I
so
feel
the first
like,
sale was that good? No.
I feel like if I couldn't sell the whole thing completely.
Sure.
Like right now, maybe 10 years down the line or something. But right now, I feel like it's so much fun to be heavily involved in it, and I can just meme on the Twitter account.
So this
and
is
shit
like
that.
This is part of your journey now.
Yeah, you always kind of want stuff outside of what you normally do. Like, I don't want to put all my eggs in YouTube's basket.
Right.
Like, if that goes tits up, then where am I? So it's nice to do stuff that you're genuinely interested in and are passionate about and want to do the everyday of it, and not just sit back and be like, yeah, just sell that and make me money. That's never the goal of the things that I'm into. So it's nice to sit back and be like, oh, this is a funny joke. I'll post this on Twitter. Or, yeah, this logo looks good. Can we change this a little bit? I really like this. And it's a space I'm not used to. So it's interesting to learn more about it and get through that, sort of go through those waters right now.
That sounds
kind of grow as a person.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a healthy mixture of things. Obviously, if it's another income source, it's stability or something that's kind of like future proofing you. But it sounds like it's something that's genuinely interesting to you. So it's this nice kind of middle ground.
Yeah, you don't want to sell out and just do the things that are making money, because then eventually you're just going to get tired of it. Making money is just one factor of anything you kind of have your hand in when it comes to business.
No, I think
you want to have a vested interest in it.
Yeah, the journey and the reaction and the relationship is what I've found is the more interesting thing. Like, I've been really hands off with our hair care stuff, and it's done very well on its own. Like, we don't even really need to promote to it that much because it's just this machine that works. But I'm like, as of December, I'm going to reinsert myself into the whole process of like reworking everything that we're doing, because I recently, I want to say about 3 months ago, reinserted myself into our merch design process, and like the creation of the actual product and the customizing the specific dye. And I was like, oh, I forgot how much I fucking love this. And then seeing like the more specific launch of like Emotionally Exhausted, which is, it was this moment that we made something, released something, it's no longer available, and I felt so fulfilled and seen, and and I appreciated the moment, and I haven't had that in a while. And so I was like, oh, I want that. So when you talk about like you wouldn't sell it and it fulfills you and you're giving something, I definitely relate to that. And I know and I also insert that because I think some people might be like, $50 million. Yeah.
Well, it's that thing, like, no one ever really wants to talk about money when it comes to YouTubers and stuff,
Mm.
but I feel like it's no illusion that I'm comfortable where I am. I've made money off YouTube. I'm thankfully very comfortable. I can have my own house. I don't have to worry about going in debt or anything
Wait,
like
I
that.
gotta
So it's
Google
like,
Jacksepticeye net worth because that's always
oh, I
incredibly
can't wait
accurate.
for that to be wrong.
Let's see.
But it's that thing where it's like, sure, making money's great, but it's I hate to be that guy, but it doesn't buy the fulfillment. It doesn't buy the happiness. And you don't really realize that until, like,
You just have a
God,
different
how do
set
you
of
say this without
problems.
sounding like a
No, you just have a
douchebag?
different set of problems. Here's the thing. Yeah, there are going to be people that perceive it as a very douchebag-tastic thing to say.
Right.
You have way fewer problems, but you still have problems, and they're just different ones. And a lot, some of it can be connected to when, like, I think you like briefly mentioned it, but didn't go into specifics of like comparing yourself to other people, because then it becomes this fucking weird race that when are you ever going to be fulfilled? Do you need,
Right.
if you get $100 million, are you going to be happy? Because, but
Yeah.
actually you're depressed because you know how much like a shitty person like maybe a Jake Paul is actually worth, or something like that. I'm
Yeah.
not putting those words in your mouth. That's mine. But no, it's like
I don't agree with these statements.
Jacksepticeye is a huge fan of Jake Paul. No, god
Uh,
damn it, no, not that.
God damn it, Dexerto are writing the article already. Fuck.
That's who you're worried about. Yeah.
Well, they're just the ones that always write anything about me. I have nothing
So
against them. Whatever.
Jacksepticeye, according to the very valid website Celebrity Net Worth, is worth $16 million. How dare you have an opinion saying people don't need money?
I know, I'm the devil.
No, but
Well,
no,
it also comes back to that question of like, how much money does one person need to, and then
should there be
that
billionaires,
thing of
Jack?
like, probably not. No, I don't think so.
How do we deal with it? Every dollar after $1 billion, it just goes to
Oh
social
God,
causes.
is this where I start talking about my thoughts on gun control, Phil?
I love it.
I don't know. I feel like any sort of wealth or growth that I've had, I've always felt this responsibility to sort of give back. I mean, I uploaded a video today of donating to smaller streamers because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm having a shitty day. I can help somebody else. I'm like, how do you sit on $1 billion and not want to do more with it? It's just so removed from who I am as a person that I can't relate to it at all.
Well, okay. So I'm actually interested in this because I haven't even thought about this personally. So when we look at like a Bill Gates, right? Famed
Yeah.
philanthropist, right? And then you look at Elon Musk, who, yes, has gotten help from the government, but is like furthering an avenue of, just human advancement, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe that is like, is it a good thing? But then at the same time, like you see Jeff Bezos and, he's donating money, but then you see you see stories pop up about the horrible treatment of his workers, and you're just like, I don't know what I feel about anything. I think,
in that scenario, it's like, it's kind of, well, I don't know, easy because I don't know the business of Amazon, but it feels like it should be a bit easier to just let your workers have a healthier, happier lifestyle with what they're doing, especially if you're worth that amount of money. I feel like it's not really going to change his life all that much. He'll probably just make it back in a month.
right.
But again, I'm not him and I don't know.
I think I have like this weird relationship with money because, like I said, I grew up not really having it, and yeah, I mean, and then initially when you start making it, you get the rush of like, oh my god, what the fuck? I'm like, I've never would have imagined this, and then I have a rough relationship with it because it's like, you might have money managers that put money in the stock market for you, or you might have, or you might do it yourself, and you see how much wealth over a certain period of time you can make from not doing anything, and I think there's a part of me, then maybe it's stemmed a certain way in self-hatred where I'm just like, I get it, but also it feels wrong that I'm making more money by not putting in more effort. Like I was raised on this idea of you bust your ass, you make this, and you keep busting your ass, and like the idea that money is earned through no effort of your, I don't know. I need to, this is one of those things that in December I need to think on more because
Yeah.
That's the danger of the podcast too, is I'm just like, unlike everything else that I do, I speak on not fully formed thoughts.
Exactly. And it's such a nuanced topic that you don't have all the answers to. I don't have all the answers to. Nobody in the comments has all the answers to. But you hope that we can get together and like collectively chat about it and actually have a discussion rather than just like barking our opinions at each other and trying to be like, no, he said this at the start of the podcast and now he's contradicting himself at the end of it. Like that kind of thing. Like you want to just be able to have a conversation and be open about it.
Right.
Because that's what's interesting. Because then I learn something, maybe somebody else learns something talking to me. You learn something from everybody, good, bad, or anything in between.
Yeah, agreed. Actually, so what would you say? This is a little out of left field, but I'm wondering if you have an opinion on it. What do you think is your secret to what's the secret to your success?
My accent.
That's it. Because I mean, I think it's been referenced in the past. Maybe you made the video, or maybe Felix made the video, or someone did. Of like, Felix has promoted a number of people. You referenced that Felix gave you a shout out early on, but there's a difference between a shout out and then actually, you know, creating a career from that long term. There's obviously a difference. So, yeah, what do you think? What do you think it is? Is it just the accent? Is there like a specific thing that you're like, you know, I focused on this and it worked out and I learned this?
It's probably a bunch of factors because the Felix shout out definitely helped. For a long time, I had a hard time saying like, yes, it boosted me because then everyone just goes like, oh, the channel Pewdiepie made. But at the same time, I'm like, well, there's all these other channels that were in it who didn't grow as much. And I think I deserve at least a little credit.
Yeah.
But it was hard to say that without sounding like I wasn't grateful because I'm infinitely grateful. And it did definitely help out the channel. But I think I was too proud to like go into that conversation in depth because I wanted to be like, no, I built it. But
well, it's a nuanced take, which the internet is not always privy to.
Sure. I think it was right place, right time, a little bit of luck. I put an immensely huge amount of hours into it. But you can put a huge amount of hours into anything and it doesn't always go somewhere. But I feel like just the right mentality, I think was a big factor for my success. I went into it not trying to prove anything. I didn't want to make any money out of it. It was great if it did. It was great if it turned into a job, but that was never my goal. And when it did turn into that, I never faltered. I always made the videos for the reasons I started off making them, which is to just find some sort of creative fulfillment and find joy in other people and to try and entertain.
Yeah.
That's kind of stuck with me to today. Again, when you grow up with nothing and you're in a log cabin in the woods with a shitty system and you're living on benefits, it's kind of hard to get full of yourself when stuff starts going your way. You kind of think back and be like, okay, that version of me would be very proud of where I am today. But if I went against that sort of moral compass, then I would just not like myself anymore.
Yeah. No, I get, 1,000%. What do you, when you think of the past like that, whether it be log cabin or really anything else, is it more nostalgic or is it more painful?
A bit of both. It's very nostalgic, especially when your audience constantly like reference it and bring up pictures and stuff and be like, oh, I found your channel during this period. It's kind of hard not to have some sort of like warmth to it. But it's definitely a much more broken version of myself. So it's hard to hear people say like, I really looked up to you and you gave me so much joy and I really wanted to be like you. When at the time I'm like, God, I don't even want to be me back then. Yeah. And you're trying to be a better version of yourself. But it's very sweet. So I'd say it's more nostalgic with a little, I've much more learned from the pain than it has defined me, I'd say.
Has that comment ever turned itself or presented itself in you've changed comments?
Oh, all the time. There's always going to be, you exist to people on the internet when they most watched your content, I think.
Yeah. And
I feel like everybody lives in these like 2-year bubbles. Everyone remembers an era. And for me, it's like green hair, happy wheels, like massive energy. For other people, it's the hat back in the log cabin. For others, it's right now. I think it's more important to be able to see the change and like grow with it. If you don't, that's fine. You'll always have the memories of what I was. But you're always going to get those comments of people saying you changed.
Right.
It's how you react to them that I think says more
about who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I've not been good about reacting to in the past. It was very much like, no, fuck you. I'm same as I always was. And it's like, no, you're not. That's fine. Like live in that.
God.
Appreciate that. Grow with it.
Yeah, no, thank God I'm not who I was even 5 years ago. Ugh. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I just want to take a second to thank one of the sponsors of today's episode, Radix Remedies. If you didn't know, Radix Remedies is a national CBD provider launched by a group of friends who saw firsthand the benefits of CBD oil. Founders set out to provide pharmaceutical quality hemp-based CBD oil legally purchasable in all 50 states. The hemp-based CBD is THC-free, so no psychoactive high, just pure CBD relief. Radix has a wide variety of infused products, including tinctures, topicals, and more, like their top-selling Sleepy Bears, helping you achieve deep sleep and recharge. Also, right now, Radix is excited for their new highly anticipated nootropic, NeuroRoot Focus Plus, a blend of ingredients that promotes brain function, memory development, and positive mood. In addition to CBD, NeuroRoot contains caffeine and vitamin B6 for an extra energy boost, Euchinopurines extract, an anti-inflammatory that promotes brain health, citicoline, which assists with memory, and other health-promoting elements like chlorophyll and lion's mane mushroom. And also, don't forget their soft gels, which have a great new look at a lower price point with these same great effects. So, just head on over to radixremedies.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco to unlock some special deals lined up just for you beautiful bastards. And on top of all of that, all orders will be entered for a free chance to win free CBD for a year, and Radix subscription boxes are 50% off for the first month, so do not wait. But with all of that said, thank you, you're welcome, and now back to the podcast.
How long ago do you have to look back where it's like it starts to get really like, ugh,
Well, so
where you really start cringing at it?
when you talk about 2-year bubbles, I have a different kind of cringe for each one. I think 2 years ago I was I accidentally leaned into, I'm a little bit of a broken record, but I say this so that I can get it out there always. 2 years ago, I cringed because I feel like I constantly made false equivalencies between arguments, no matter like, well, if one side was not based in reality or their points were weak, I would just, to be fair, I'd be like, well, one side said this and the other side said this, and without diving deeper into why a certain side was not as valid or not based in reality at all, or was a spin or a talking point. And so, because I was scared that would come off as opinion and that would be like, oh, I'm being biased. Whereas if you're presenting the news, you have an obligation to the truth, right? You have an obligation to provide context and background into if something is valid or equal, right? Like if I'm talking about something on the show, and let's say I'm talking about the president of the United States doing just saying a lie or doing something horrible or providing whatever context. And then in that same episode, I don't talk about someone else who is in a much lower position that maybe doesn't agree with the president having done something wrong. It's like, well, the way that I organize my show is whoever has the most power. Like that makes sense as far as who to talk about first. And not equating like someone that has the ability to drastically change something to someone who is just saying something. Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that, and then you go further back and it's more of just like me trying to be edgy, and it just like not having any sort of talent back, because to be like a proper provocateur and not just be an asshole who's spouting offensive shit, like it takes skill. It takes skill and setup and builds, and otherwise you're just being a fucking asshole. And I didn't realize that early on. And so like I think back and I'm like, oh, I'd fucking hate dealing with me then. Though I will say I've drastically changed my kind of like a opinion on how I think about it. Because I used to say like, I hate that person. But it's like, it was me. It was me. If I don't acknowledge that it was me, then I steal the story of personal growth from myself.
Yeah.
Even if I, want to like, through using that statement, want to distance myself because people in the past, whether it be a year ago or 2 years ago, would try to use that against me, So
Sure,
I think it's, and then just, you hope that as far as like the audience that you've created, they have you've communicated in a way where there is that open mind.
Yeah. It's interesting that you brought that up, because I had the exact same thing. I went to my therapist and I talked about how I didn't like that version of myself anymore, like the really energetic, green hair, happy wheels, because a lot of people told me that that's who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people on the internet kind of laughed at it and sort of thought it as like childish, and like, of course he has dyed hair, and of course he's playing happy wheels, and of course he's swearing and yelling. Like, he's such a kid's entertainer. And I hated that people said that about me, because it made me really insecure. And I thought that I had more to give than that. I'm like, you're just taking this slice of me and it's not fair. But at the same time, again, it's outside of my control. If people are going to perceive me as that, it's kind of up to me to change that perception if I really want to. And I feel like nowadays I'm completely different. I'm much more older and mature, but a lot of people still hold me as that version and kind of like meme it and say that it's cringy and whatever. But I'm much better about dealing with it. But I used to say that I tried to kill the boy to become the man from Game of Thrones. And my therapist was like, that's interesting that you said that, because those are war words. You want to go to war with yourself. You want to kill a version of yourself to be this version. But that was you. You use that version to get to who you are now. And if you neglect that version, then you don't learn from it. Mm-hmm. And that was fascinating to me, because it was like, no, let the boy out to play whenever you need him. Like, you shouldn't neglect the child that's within you. You should let him out to play. But when you need to go do the real mature work, then that's when the other version of you comes out to play. And that completely changed my perception of myself and made me learn so much more about myself.
Hearing you say it that
and
way.
Nowadays, I kind of lean more into like, it doesn't matter. If people think that, then that's fine. It shouldn't bother me as much as it did.
No, I mean, hearing you say it like that, it makes me feel like maybe even another kind of learning point from it is that it can show us that maybe other people can actually change. Maybe not instantly, but like over time.
Yeah.
Because you experience it yourself. Maybe that's a positive note we can take from that.
Yeah, you can't change on the internet immediately either. Again, it takes like that 2 years to kind of really start shifting people's gaze that way. But some people want to change so drastically, so quickly, that they just fall off the deep end and then start doing all the ridiculous stuff that we see on the internet.
Yeah. Jack, you seem like either that you faked it really well, or you are a well-adjusted human being. So I'm going to ask you, what's one thing I could do that would drastically or dramatically improve my life?
Take some time every day to organize your thoughts, whether it be meditation to just calm your breathing. It's really good for anxiety. Or another one is to kind of like the Stoic teaching is to set up your day, write down what your plans are, what you want to do better than yesterday, do your day. And then at the end, kind of scorecard yourself, be like, but not in a judgmental way. So at the end, you're like, okay, I wanted to do that, didn't get it done. We'll try again tomorrow. But here's another thing that I did today that I'm proud of, that I'm happy with. And it's really good for your brain to be able to close off the day, to start it and close it off. That's why commuting to work is such an important thing that people don't realize until they start working from home a lot. That me and my girlfriend she found a thing where it's like, fake a commute, go out, walk around a park, and then come back and then start your work day. And then after your work day, do that walk again. So your brain closes off your work and then you're yourself. And that's why biking for you, I think, was such a good thing, because you're meditating as you go. You're with your thoughts and you're sweating it out and doing a physical thing to break. Like the CGP Grey video said, you prep the physical to get the mental going, to heal it.
You got me a little nervous, because one of the changes I'm thinking of making in the next year is my new place has like an area for, it would be a guest house, but I'm thinking of turning it into a studio. And so you got me a little nervous, because I haven't worked from home in a while.
I mean, it's only because I've worked at home for 8 years. So you need coping mechanisms. It's not a bad thing only when you let it. It's when you can't let your work turn off and you let your work invade your life.
Okay.
Because it's this line of work, it's like you're always on. People are tweeting at you, people are Instagramming at you, and you want to like make sure that you're caught up on everything.
So like in this room that you're filming right now, that you're streaming in, is this a room that you can also like just browse the internet and that's that, or this is a room for work?
It should be a room just for work, but there have been times when I get kind of lost on the internet, and then you start seeing people tweet stuff and you're like, oh man, they're doing that cool thing and I'm doing nothing, and oh man, they did this and it got so many views and I shouldn't. But I've gotten better at it over the last few weeks. And again, the break helped a lot with that. But it should be the workspace. And then I can go on the internet on my laptop in the living room or something.
Yeah. Hey, so a question that almost every creator hates, I do, but I'm interested in your answer. If everything went away, right? For some reason, the YouTube algo is like, actually, never mind, fuck you, Jack. And for some reason, you got banned for having crazy ideas that you decided to share. What
if I put a SpongeBob road rage video in my video and then I get strikes?
It's such a YouTube story. Sorry, I had to cover it this week, and I was like, Yep. No, that makes sense. No, like,
Yeah, that tracks.
yeah, it's like there's so much content and it's such a big company and no one's fucking communicating the way they need to. And then
Never.
you have to have one of the biggest creators on the platform go, yeah, hit me with a strike. And then they do it.
Yeah. And then they die on a hill, and then they're like, wait, never mind.
Wait, no, this isn't the hill that I died on. This is a misunderstanding.
Shit, they don't speak for me.
It's whenever those situations happen, I'm just I want the like just a mini doc on how that stupid thing happened.
I mean, you know exactly what it is. It's just management miscommunication. You've talked to YouTube enough at this point. You know that shit just gets lost and not communicated well.
I for the most part, as far as any communication, it's almost all through just one singular contact at this point. I think that's just naturally happened. It could also stem from a meeting I had a few years ago at the YouTube headquarters where I didn't say Robert Kinsel was in the meeting, but I think I cursed at someone in the room. I can't remember what their role was.
Oh no, you badmouthed Susan, didn't you?
No. Not Susan. No, I mean, I know that there's an area for communication that's possible, but I know like with Susan, for example, I don't know, hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this. Like I've been pursuing that interview for so long, and you know, we got closer recently, but then when the topic comes up of will you send your questions beforehand, I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Why would I fucking do that? Do you want to just email them back to me? Like,
yeah.
But I mean, and I know there's a way that you can do it where you think of like the follow-up questions and shit like that, and you know, what can you get?
Sure.
What can you do? But I don't know. Like,
it takes the organic nature out of it.
Yeah. It's like no one wants a sanitized thing. I'm not your PR. Like that's so yeah.
Sure.
So then you're just like, yeah, I'll just deal with my YouTube contact. And he's been great. He's great.
Yeah.
He I think I'm like a vacation from him. He had to deal with fuck, I'm just outing him. He had to deal with Logan Paul during his like biggest controversies. So I'm like, I'm easy street for him.
Yeah, that's about as hard as the job gets, really.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, you didn't ask your question if it all went away.
Oh, wait. I asked you, but then I don't know what happened.
We just start talking about strikes on YouTube and shitting on it. Oh, classic. This is what happens when YouTubers get together. It's just like, can you believe it?
No, so what would you do?
At first, I'd probably just take time off and revel in the time I get to catch up on all the shows and whatnot. Just like exercise more, kind of just do stuff for myself. But I think after a while, I'd just start creating again. I'd probably write a show or help somebody else write stuff or do stuff with my coffee or just get heavily involved in another project. I feel like when you do this for so long, and maybe it's why I started in the first place, you just have a creative well in you that needs to like be filled. And I feel like I just find another avenue. I'd probably just go to Twitch or something and start doing it there.
So I'm gonna switch this over to you. Do you have any questions for me before we leave?
You asked me at the start, like, what's the goal? What's the end goal? Like, what do you want to get? What do you want people to get out of this channel and what you're doing? Where do you want to be? What's the end goal?
I mean, my goal is for people to be less confused about the world in my day-to-day show, and every now and then when the opportunity pops up where something is not completely depressing, to be able to entertain while I inform, though that is harder and harder these days, which I think is also why I feel a little disconnected from the current version of my show, because it's so heavy at times.
Right.
But a lot of it, I think, is more me focused these days. I think for a while, I felt like I needed to build something that was bigger than me in this own space. And I've tried now in 2 or 3 different avenues. And ultimately it comes back to, I have the most success when I'm focusing on me. I don't know if that means like I'm not a great collaborator. I'm not like several other things that I would need to be successful in that way. And I feel like maybe it's because even all these years in, my success has come from a place that's very raw, not refined in the sense of like I go into something with no game plan. The title for the video comes in last 10 minutes, which is dumb considering like how important it's worth. The thumbnail.
I think people would be surprised to know that that's 90% of YouTubers.
Yeah, and I mean, but they're
the last thing you do.
Yeah, but I mean, there are people that like properly understand and test out A/B testing off platform, and then they go with what they learned on YouTube. Like there are people that have very refined things. I look at people that, as far as like who knows what they're like, Matt Pat, great fucking example of an incredibly smart person that is actively learning from every success and failure. Right. But I don't have the, I don't think I have the mental energy at this point to dedicate like, I'm not that level of interested in it.
Yeah.
Which I should be.
I mean, same.
But
I keep looking at my analytics and I'm like, I probably should understand this a little more to figure out what's going right and wrong. And I don't get it.
Yeah, no. And when you, especially when you're, if during that time you're doing daily or at a pace that it's just like, it's breathless, it's hard to take anything from it. But yeah, I think having a place that you feel like, okay, I can trust this place. Obviously I should incorporate other sources. And that's something that I constantly preach, for better and worse, because sometimes people go to some sources that are just conspiratorial with a coat of paint. But yeah, I mean, that's my goal. I'm not thinking of anything that's bigger. I'm thinking about what I have with the current audience and the people that I want to surround myself with. And also, because the idea of like legacy, I don't need it. Like when I initially sold, like years ago, I sold my companies to Discovery before eventually buying them back years later. Like there was part of me that was like, that I fed off of people like going like, oh, Philip DeFranco, he did this big business thing in the space. And it's like, oh, it means all that. I don't fucking care about legacy. Like I don't like the idea that made me feel better in any way is insane. It doesn't matter. Like, did it make me happier for a moment? But it's so passing. But yeah, I mean, so
do you think when, let's say, you hang up your microphone or whatever you have, that do you think you'll pass it on to somebody else so you keep generating revenue from it, or is this it? It's done when it's done.
No, I mean,
do you keep giving the truth to people through your medium, or do you just stop and hope people find it somewhere else?
I've struggled with that. I've tried to find other people. Anytime I think that I'm kind of close, there was definitely someone, I want to say about 4 years ago, that I thought it would make sense, but then I realized it would be a very bad thing, to try and do that handoff, that they would either like, they weren't, yeah, I won't go into it. It would be a bad idea. More recently, it's hard. Cause a lot of like the entertaining voices are super that have a super lean. And obviously like we live in very divisive and polarizing times. So it's just a reflection of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe somewhere in the future, but I think I would just continue to use my channel in a different way. Like when I say like I'm going to switch things up next year, I still want to do a version of what I'm doing, but just hopefully something that I can feel prouder of and don't feel like I'm exhausting myself and the people around me with the output that we're trying to do. But no, I mean, to that point, like I don't think I would ever fully retire. I'd still want to do stuff in the space. I'd still want to have that connection because I didn't have that growing up. To I guess bring this whole podcast full circle, I didn't have that sense of community, and it's less of like I would feel like I'm abandoning people, because I know some people would feel abandoned, but it was more of I still want those people around me. I feel more comfortable. So before we, before I booked the podcast with you, I was leaning towards maybe just shooting a podcast by myself and just like talking to the camera. And because I think I was talking to the team here too, like I'm getting stuff so I can make an occasional vlog, nothing with a schedule, nothing like that. I just don't feel like I've been able to connect with the people that I've, communicate with every single day, because I don't.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that there's a way that I can communicate and share myself and connect without giving everyone everything, right? What you kind of talked about is like what's scary about having the audience. But I don't have that now, and I'm still trying to figure out the balance, and I even get lost in the kind of thoughts around it.
Yeah, I mean your show is very specific, that it's not really a vehicle for personal moments.
Right.
I mean, you could put them in, but then I don't know, maybe you risk cannibalizing the audience who want just the news, and they're like, well, we don't care about that, whatever. But it's the same with like Let's Plays. Like I can play a game, but you're not really getting a sense for who I am and where my thoughts are right now and what I'm going through and where my head's at. So you need certain different kind of series and certain different shows and
Oh,
episodes or videos that I do to
yeah.
like get a different version of me.
I just remembered where I was trying to go with that. So when I was thinking of like doing the podcast by myself, it for
Yeah.
me feels the only thing that would feel uncomfortable, slightly maybe uncomfortable, is that, you know, I got two guys in the room. I got one guy on TriCaster, one to make sure sound and connection and everything's working. I feel more comfortable speaking to the camera that's going to go out to, depending on whatever channel, could just be 50,000 views, could be over 1 million. I feel more comfortable sharing my most vulnerable thoughts that way than with two real human beings in the room, which is also something that I need
Right.
to fucking like look into more, because that's sharing your most personal feelings and real feelings on something to 1 million people should be just a completely different level of uncomfortable than
Yeah.
saying something to just another human being face to face.
Right.
Because it's,
I mean, it makes total sense though.
but it's like, but that's,
I'd have the same thing. I'd like when the camera's there, you know, people are watching, but at the same time, it's still just a camera at the end of the day.
but it's still 1 million people. And is it not also, how do we not see it as like the same as the real world if we're then on Twitter and we're on all these things that we're allowing to emotionally change us? Right? When I've gotten like the most love or the most hate, all of it happened while I was in a room, not with any of those people. And it was drastically changing my feelings at that moment, my thoughts about myself, my thoughts about life. And so there is, I guess, a subconscious understanding that there is a disconnect, that it's not real, but it is. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, and I end up, the only reason I end up kind of like not doing it is I'm more concerned about how it might affect the few people close to me. Right? Same thing as like if I'm talking about like what I want to do for work, right? Like I want to be able
Yeah.
to say I want to tone things down without people being like, "Wait, what does that mean for me?" And it's like, "No, I'm going to try my damnedest to make sure everything's going to be fine for you, but it doesn't make sense for me when I'm sharing this emotional feeling to go into boss
Yeah.
manager mode." And then it's like, "But then is it
Right.
unprofessional to share?" It's so, I don't like the hats. I think the main thing I'm saying is I want a more simplistic life. I want to make the same money for less work.
You heard it here first, folks.
More for less.
There you go. Min max your output.
Exactly.
YouTubers keeping therapists in business for years.
I can always, the funny thing I've realized with this podcast is, you said you're talking to a therapist, yeah? Or you talked to a therapist?
I had talked to a therapist a bunch of times.
But I
Yeah, I'm not currently seeing one, but I will be starting again soon.
But I
just
feel
'cause
like whenever
it's
I'm
nice.
on this podcast, I can feel who has, because they all have like these tools as far as like how they manage their life, and a lot of it, it's not like I randomly discovered. It's like someone told me this is how you do it.
Right. I mean, that's as good a way as any. I mean, when you start like gaining weight or feeling unhealthy, like what do? You know that you should eat better and work out. But whenever you start feeling shittier, nobody goes to like the mental gym to get better. You just have to try and like deal with it on your own. And that's where I think therapy is such a huge vital asset for people. I feel like if you can afford it, you should absolutely go. Even if you think there's nothing wrong with you, there 100% is. None of us are perfect.
Is that the note we're going out on? Even if you don't think something's wrong with you, something is.
You're all fucked up. You just don't know it yet.
That's where we're going out. Jacksepticeye, thank you, sir, for spending 2 hours with me.
No problem. Thank you for the insightful conversation.